Last week on the Nicoletti Show. Ron, let's go.
Every single business is based off of having strong rapport. The man in the mirror is the only person you should ever care about. Hire somebody to build your dream. Otherwise, somebody will hire you to build theirs. That's what this business is about. It's about getting the right education from the right people. Make the trend your friend. Those who know how to adapt, pivot, and evolve are the ones that are going to survive. I'll give you a free 30-minute consultation with me, one-on-one with me, just because you saw me on the Nicoletti Show. When you're on the Nicoletti Show, baby, you have made it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Nicoletti Show. I am so happy everybody's staying tuned and watching tonight. It is going to be a really special episode. We're going to dive deep on, probate real estate because it's an amazing niche. We're going to dive in because we got the best guy in the house, Chad Corbett. He's going to dive all in on the probate real estate. But before we begin, make sure you check out the Nicoletti Show, which is on iTunes and Spotify. So you go to iTunes and Spotify, hit the subscribe button. Amazing past guests on the Nicoletti Show. It goes back from season 1, season 2, season 3, and you can check out all the episodes that are video on YouTube, all the past guests on YouTube, and check out the micro that's dropping on Instagram, Facebook under Nicoletti, and all the amazing things that are popping up on probate, quiet title, and all the things in real estate niches that are happening. I hope you all also enjoyed the brand new intro to the Nicoletti Show. That was a whole new intro. If you didn't get to see it, go back and watch it because that was a whole new intro to all the amazing things and all the amazing viewers that are watching. I wanted to do that for you all so you all can get the full experience of the show and all the guests that are on the show. So stay tuned. There's a lot coming. And here's my intro because I know you all are waiting for it. Hey, everybody. My name is Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their community that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate and really, really going beyond Florida, right? So I'm bringing on a lot of people outside of Florida too. They're in Texas, they're in New York, they're in California, people that are coming on this show that are providing so much value on how you out there can take your business to the next level in the real estate game. So on the show today, I have a great guest. I've been waiting to connect with Chad. This is one of those that you got him, you get him on the show. He's going to drop the tips and tricks on all probate real estate and how he got started and where he is today and how you get into the game. So I just want to say again, thank you all fans that are watching. Frank, Robert, thanks for everybody that's watching. You're going to really enjoy the guest. So let me tell you about Chad a little bit. So Chad's an investor. He's a realtor. He's a trainer, a digital marketer, and he's been doing this all from 2005 in whole ownership resort development. And he's been doing a whole bunch of stuff in real estate for many years. And he moved from Hawaii to Virginia when he started his career. We're going to talk a little bit about how he got from there to here. But he's been doing a whole bunch of real estate stuff since 2011. He co-founded All the Leads. I actually didn't know that until I read the bio before the show. We're going to talk about All the Leads because investors talk about that at the boot camps, at the masterminds, about how you get more leads. So he did that. He co-founded it in 2014. And then in 2020, he formed the Magnus Opus Project, a social enterprise teaching small business owners and entrepreneurs in the real estate space to build 7-figure businesses in 12 months or less. So that's huge stuff. And on the show, we're going to talk about a wide range of everything real estate and what he's focused on in probate in the last 7 years. And we're going to keep it to probate, but he's going to tell you all about some stories and all the things about rent, own, lease options, and using private money for investments and all the amazing things you can do with it. So without further ado, welcome Chad Corbett to the show. Chad, thanks for being here. It's a pleasure seeing you. It's first time meeting. It's amazing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I feel like I have to go redo my intro now, so let's make this quick. Like you raised the bar for me.
I bring the energy, but this is the best part about having guests like you. And I just want to say, Chad, to all those that are watching, I made sure that we are doing a special giveaway after. Because I want people to get as much info as they can. I have a special giveaway. People have to stay tuned all the way. We may do it in the middle. We may do it at the end, but we're going to drop it. And everybody's going to stay tuned to watch Chad Corbett talk everything about tips and tricks in the real estate probate world. So Chad, tell us, How did you get here? Where was the beginning for you? I saw the thing about Hawaii. Now you're in the whole Florida game. Tell us who Chad Corbett is.
Gosh, man, I feel like I have to jump back to give context. So I was recruited by the FBI out of college before I graduated. Knew nothing about business, nothing about real estate, didn't even own a laptop. And because of a hearing test waiver, and they wavered me in and eventually offered me a desk job instead of my field job. And they burned me there on principle. So I left in 05 or in 06 and got into real estate. And I got into it because I was just chasing money. And I quickly learned it was a people business, and I stayed into it for that reason. So I did ski front, beachfront development, and that's what ended up ultimately landing me in Hawaii. So in 07, I saw an environment a lot like the one we see right now, where you had early leading economic indicators. At the time, I didn't know enough about economics to know what it was, but I knew I needed to be a moving target. So I took a project in the Smoky Mountains. We built an indoor water park resort that was a 12.3 cap, all included, a true 12 cap. And from there, 2008 sat in on us. So I became a capital raiser by necessity. Wells Fargo, GMAC, other big banks were our preferred lenders. They pulled all of our condo products in a day. So I had, I don't know, 75, 80 grand worth of commissions on the table and no loans to close the deals. They were pre-construction and coming to completion. So I became a capital raiser that day. I went to community banks. I raised 42 million bucks in an afternoon, brought it back, and then told the developer I was coming off of commission and onto salary. And then my little project worked. So I ended up managing the closings for about $1 billion worth of pre-sold real estate in the 2008, 9, 10 crisis. Which led me to Seattle, so I could cover 6 time zones, and eventually moving to Maui, where I lived on Kaanapali Beach and sold beachfront luxury real estate there. And then at 29 years old, I became unemployable. I was tired of being told by people from the mainland who didn't understand Hawaiian culture or what it was like to be a salesperson with no marketing budget and no support. I was tired of just tired of being an employee. So I knew there was something better. I knew that I had always been responsible for my own income, never really on a W-2, but I was being told what to do because I worked for a developer. So I took a chance. I finally found the courage. I kept hitting sales, pushing me out 60 days. I'd go in and sell a couple $1 million deal, and I'm like, damn, now I have another 60 days. But eventually I found the courage to walk away from the pending paychecks, put all my stuff in a Connex, shipped it to Seattle, got on my motorcycle, and spent 2 months in the Canadian wilderness with a fly rod and a journal. And that was about it. No electronics, no computer, no phone. Nobody knew where I was. And from that, that changed my whole life, because on a mountaintop in British Columbia one night, I said, whatever I create, whatever this is, whatever is going to find me, whatever's in store next, I will help others more than myself, turn 6 figures so I can live and give the way I want. And I'll be able to do it from anywhere in the world with an iPhone. And then I took off and visited almost every national park in the country with my dad and my dog over the next 8 or so months. So I kind of took my gap year at 29 and chose Roanoke, Virginia, a town where I knew nobody, had no contacts. I chose it based on demographics and the potential I saw there to start a real estate investing company. And so as soon as I got in, I rented a place, hit the ground running. I think the second day I lived there, I triggered my first wholesale mailer campaign to an absentee list. Did a few wholesale deals. I'd spent my whole career negotiating the price up on millionaires and billionaires. So wholesaling really didn't feel right to me. I still wholesale deals, but I don't use it as a primary strategy. From wholesaling, I felt, wow, I could help more people if I learned creative financing. So I started doing lease options. I had a 95% close rate on my lease option program. I've done subject to wraps, owner finance, just tried on all the hats. I was trying to find something that checked all those boxes, like it met those 3 rules. And eventually I got my 4th real estate license. I got my Virginia license to go along with all the others. And about, I don't know, probably 6 months into this discovery of just trying every strategy. At the time I was working as an investor and trying to switch to my brokerage hat if they would flinch too hard on an offer, which I wasn't having much success at. And one day I walked into a house that I really selfishly wanted because it was in the neighborhood I chose from 6,000 miles away. So I was like, yes, I finally found my house. So I walked in, and this lady had called me off of a letter that was hanging on the fridge. Her mother had actually called me 2 months prior to say, I'll never sell my place. Don't you ever mail me again, and hung up on me. Well, I didn't know, but she had put the letter on the refrigerator. Her husband, she was probating her husband's estate. So I get a call a couple months later. Her daughter, Pam, was frantic, crying. And Pam didn't know what to do. They had no cash. Her whole net worth was wrapped up in this house. She had had a massive stroke the night before. They were discharging her. She was stable, but they were discharging her to ICU, and they couldn't afford it, and she couldn't qualify for Medicaid because she had the asset. So this was the first appointment where I took away the label of Chad the investor, Chad the realtor, and I was just Chad on that appointment. We walked through the house. I noticed the things of value, the personal property. There was, antique handmade furniture, other things that I could see we could sell quickly. And when we came back to the living room, I didn't even see this coming. It wasn't my intent, but I made her the cash offer, and she flinched as I expected. But I gave her 3 more options. Option 1 was a cash offer, close as is where is. I'll pay your closing costs. We'll get it done in 3 to 4 days. But she needed cash, and she needed it fast, but she also needed to maximize the amount of equity. So the cash offer obviously met her fast cash goal, but it didn't meet her maximum equity goal. So option 2 was as is where is. I would list it as is where is, and we could sell it for a higher price and a little bit longer time frame. Option 3 was we would empty the home, sell the personal property, use the proceeds from the personal property to do a cosmetic rehab, and then go to market conventionally. Option 4 was everything in option 3, but we sell it as a lease with option to purchase because she and her husband held title as tenants in the entirety with rights of survivorship. So the house wasn't actually part of probate. And at that time, I knew just enough about probate to know that my strategy would work. And to my surprise, that was the most complex strategy. She lit up like a Christmas tree, and she's like, oh my God, that. So within 3 days, we sold the personal property, did a cosmetic rehab, put it out to my tenant buyer list. We had 4 buyers fighting over it. I turned 3 of them into conventional buyers because they didn't think they could qualify for financing, but they could. And the 4th was a pair of Navy veterans who forgot to pay a utility bill when they moved out of their place in Pittsburgh. So we took an $8,000 option fee, $1,100 first month, $1,100 last month. We did the VA inspection on the front end, which, by the way, you can do that. I didn't know. I was a little scared because VA inspections can sometimes be touchy. But we cleared all contingencies on the front end, and they closed, I think, 6 to 8 months later. But I was able to transaction engineer that deal, thinking on my feet as a rookie investor, less than 6 months in, and she netted more than $25,000 than the house had expired for with no showings and no offers when they had it on the market. So I went home that night and I was like, what in the hell did I just do? And how can I do this again? And the next morning I got up and I went to the probate clerk in Roanoke City. And I said, could you, I'm looking to help more folks like I did yesterday. Can you treat me like a petitioner and walk me through this process start to finish so I can better understand it? And that's where my journey started. So I realized that there were 120 people on average a month in that market. So I started to actively market just to that list. And I continued to use that just be Chad. So I took away the investor title, took away the realtor title, didn't offer any specific real estate service. I was more people focused in it. And it became basically the one pillar that held up both sides, both the brokerage business and the investment business. The one part that I hated and wasn't wasn't dollar productive and didn't make sense for me to do was the data acquisition. So I would go to the courthouse, I would pull the records, I would skip trace, build my list, database it, and then get started on a marketing campaign. And that seemed foolish. And that's where, as you mentioned in the beginning of the show, me and my partner, Jim Sullivan, who's down in Fort Lauderdale, he was one of my clients from the resort world. We started to test with the list. and took what I had done with that deal that I just referenced and started to do it at scale. And it was working in Florida and it was working in Virginia. So we formed a company called All the Leads, where we sent live researchers into courthouses in all 3,149 counties. We would bring that out, do a data augmentation, skip trace, provide phone numbers, and then deliver it all into a CRM that was your list management platform. And I had a good time building that company, but I decided last year to sell my shares and move into a fifth wheel and just travel. I was traveling 6 to 8 months a year anyway, so I just decided to go full time and
Nice.
just commit to finally being a nomad. So I've built Probate Mastery as my course, and I've built that over the last 11 months from a
Wow.
fifth wheel across 27 different states.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot you just said that we have to dive into. You have people watching that I know they're going to have a lot of questions, and anybody that is watching the show right now, if you have a question for Chad, ask it. I see all the comments. I see everybody chiming in here, and we're going to go through the list because Chad, I have a lot of viewers that watch, and I have loyal fans that love watching the show. So I know there's going to be questions, and I mean, I'll start at that bottom. Frank Spalding's watching. Frank, thank you so much. Robert Rodriguez is here. And then Figmo Daddy. I don't know, Figmo Daddy. We'll make sure we get your name. But he said, greetings from Citrus County, Florida, the nature coast and land of endless probates. We'll dive in with that with Chad. Ira, I see you. Ira's watching. Rose Ching, aloha. So you have people from Hawaii that's watching the Al Nicoletti Show right now, Chad. There you go. Bill Gross. You know Bill? You know Bill
I know
Gross?
Bill. I've been on the phone with Bill a couple of times today. We just found out that we're all with he said you're on his show later this week.
Yeah, I'm going to be on Bill's show. This could be a lot of fun. Every time I'm on Bill's show, it's like we could go on for hours. So we have to like divide it in half. Bill's watching. He said 2 giants together. Really appreciate that, Bill. And then Guillermo's watching. He said, really good nugget. Focus on being a people person. That's I took some notes on your opener right there that we'll dive into. So yeah, Guillermo, we're going to talk with Chad about just be Chad, like what that really means and what that is. And then Frank, yeah, thank you. Kobe. Whoa, Kobe's back. We've been waiting for Kobe to be back. We haven't seen Kobe in so long. Kobe, thank you for watching. I know you're there with the laptop open. So, and then Kat, she says Florida's really a probate haven. So, Chad, we gotta dive in because everybody keep dropping the comments. We want to hear what you got to say. I'm with Chad. There's no time duration on this one. We got to hear all the nuggets and the tips and tricks with Chad. So, Chad, tell us about that personal experience, though, about the Just Be Chad. So, was this your first probate deal that you had ever come across as realtor investor ever?
It wasn't the first at bat that I had. It was the first one that I got on paper. So when I first started, I bought a list. You guys probably have discussed it on the show. It was Lance and Terry U.S. Leads list, I think, is the name of the list, and it's an inheritance list. So I had that was one of the first lists that I tried prospecting. So I had met with several families who had already cleared the house had already cleared the probate process or wasn't part of it because I was prospecting an inheritance list. And what I was trying was going in as an investor. And then if I couldn't get the deal at a wholesale price, then I would try to take my investor hat off and put my realtor hat on. What I found is you would almost always break down rapport when you were doing that. So I had failed, I don't know, probably 12 to 14 appointments I did wrong. And once I figured this out, I've been batting 1,000 ever since.
Yeah. So when you got into that deal, everybody picked up on it. I know Guillermo picked up on it, but it was you saw that there was something different with that transaction. What they were going through, right? The situation with the mom, now and everything. So then that shifted you into a different frame of mind, which was that personal frame of mind, the just be Chad. Can you really get into what that mindset is on probate? A lot of investors and realtors strive to have that mindset when tackling those deals. Whether things happened recently or death had been 15 years ago, there's still that element of a probate being involved and that attachment maybe to the property. What is that just be Chad mentality that you can share?
So ultimately what I learned is it doesn't matter what list. So everything that I say is going to apply across the board. But empathy is the most important skill. If you don't have that already, empathy is the most important skill you can build if you're working with distressed assets. Because everyone else is doing hey, you're in a shitty situation. You got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and I got cash. Blah, 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 blah. And it's all logic driven. And what I figured out was if you focus, just forget the real estate. Like until you have rapport with a person, you don't have a deal anyways, unless you're dealing with a bank, unless you're buying at the courthouse steps. So what I learned that really helped me, I mean, my closing rate went to damn near 100%, was focus on the people and the situation and earn the real estate conversation. They don't owe you shit. You have to earn that. You build rapport with them. You get them to trust you, and you let them know that you don't get paid until you do exactly what you promise. People want to do business with you. People can't wait to sign paperwork with you. And at the end of it, the way I've always checked to see if I'm doing a good job is I turn the paper around, I slide it across the table, and I present a blue pen. And I almost never get an objection. And that's when I know I've done my job. When they grab, without speaking, they grab the pen and sign where I place my finger. And it's all about building rapport on the front end. Quit talking about yourself. Quit talking about real estate. Be 100% focused on the people, their situation, what their challenges are, what their goals are, and listen more than you speak in the beginning. And they'll tell you exactly how to lay out the most valuable offer they've ever heard from anyone, because it's customized to their situation and their emotional state. And it's really that simple. I mean, we could talk, I have 1,000 hours of me on YouTube talking about it, but it really is that simple.
We'll make sure everybody checks that out. We put it at the bottom of the screen, your YouTube channel, thousands of hours of things that Chad's talking about. But this is all great. Keep going, Chad.
So that's what I learned. And whether it's a foreclosure list, you guys have, I mean, there's stuff on YouTube of how I approach foreclosures. I did a role play recently. I think Kat released that yesterday. So it should be at the top of our YouTube channel. I approach these as consultations, not acquisition appointments. And I get a completely different result than I got when I was trying to be an acquisition guy. And I show up, and if it's hi, my name's Chad. I've got a team of folks here in Roanoke that help families going through probate. As part of that, we actually go to the courthouse at least once a month and meet with the clerk. And you were one of the people she said we should try to get in touch with. So I wanted to make you aware that our service is here and see if there's any way we might be able to help you. What's been the toughest thing so far?
Wow.
Now, you don't know that I'm an investor. You don't know that I'm a broker. You don't know that I'm a capital raiser. You don't know that I, any of those things. Like what I was 100% focused on them. So what's going through their mind is, who is this person? How did they get my contact information? What can they do for me, or what do they want? And the best way to defeat an objection is to never let it arise. So I'm proactively, through a unique selling proposition, I'm proactively meeting those objections that came up in those first 14 appointments. I just get in front of them. And from the beginning, I get them out of that, default mode network where they're in the habit of saying the same thing to everyone that makes that phone call. I get them on their heels. So then I'm talking directly to the human, because they're not just, saying the same thing they've said to everyone else. We're having a real conversation. So, and if you notice, so I said who I am, how I got their information, my intent of the call, and I ended with an open-ended emotional question. What's been the toughest thing for you so far? We're still focused on people. We're 10 minutes from a real estate conversation, even though it's a real estate prospecting call.
Wow. This is all deep stuff. I don't know if I've ever heard it getting this far in when it comes to the investing side on the front end of a probate intake on a real estate deal. And it makes me think, like, the probate mastery thing that you've put together, the course, the program, it does it get into all of this stuff?
We go through, so I spend 6 hours breaking down what I just showed you. Like I literally peel it apart layer by layer and teach the psychology and the neurology of everything that I just rolled into that simple statement. It's over 3 sessions. We cover 16 hours. We go through the full spectrum of everything you can do from a brokerage or investment standpoint. We probably talk about combined probably two dozen different tactics, like real estate investing tactics, creative financing, creative deal structure, JVing with the family. Like I've taught several people how to actually partner with an estate. They have no money out of pocket. You get a free house to flip. The family gets a huge bump in equity on the back end. So I start with basic and go all the way to advanced, and people kind of choose what fits with them. But I give everything I can give. So the first session is really focused on the demographics, the numbers in probate, why it's such an opportunity, and the mindset that these people are in, like what you need to know about them to develop that empathy. Session 2 is really about business strategy, what all can be done in the space, what is a valuable offer, and how can you make yours valuable. And then building a referral network of professionals like you, probate attorneys who are looking to scale their business, are tired of the redundancy, and want to delegate some of that work to someone they can trust, who's not actually a fiduciary, but is at that standard. And then session 3 is all about the conversation. We spend like 6 hours breaking apart the initial conversation, role playing, and going through objections.
Wow. There's a lot to dive in there. Make sure you check that out. It's at the bottom of the screen. So probatemastery.com. That's awesome, Chad. This is all great because a lot of people are in Florida that watch the show. And we had some people talking about how Florida's that baby boomer state. And that's why Guillermo was talking about that. Baby boomers are all in this state. There's tons of gems in what you're dropping. And Robert Rodriguez even sees that. So let me ask you this. So there's in an investor mind, when you come across a deal, it's the first thing that they're thinking is, okay, the beginning, right? How do they talk to the sellers? How do they lock up that deal? But one of the hardest things is having that continued success throughout the whole deal and being able to explain things with like the personal property and the house, or getting to the title company, or getting the whole deal closing, because it is an emotional process getting all the way to the closing. What are some tips for investors and professionals, real estate agents, whatever state they're in, about not even just getting in the beginning, but staying focused and having that empathy throughout the entire transaction all the way till closing? And I don't know, maybe you even have something after the whole transaction happens. Maybe there's still a continued connection. Tell us what those components are like.
Absolutely. So the closing a probate transaction is the beginning, and I'll come back to that. So what I teach is what I practice. Build a team around yourself of people who are that share common core values, that have the level of empathy and professionalism that you do, and then delegate everything that's not dollar productive. So I don't want you to clean out houses. I don't want you to be in self-storage business. I don't want you to be a probate attorney, but I do want you to have all those people on your team: contractors, clean out crews, social workers, nursing home employees, firearm specialists, CPAs, you name it. Anyone these people might have a need for: registered investment advisors, insurance guys. It just, the list goes on and on and on. You never stop building this vendor team. What the result is when you're first making contact, back to that very first statement, I have a team of people here in Roanoke built specifically to help families in your situation. Everyone else is saying, hi, my name's Tom with ABC Real Estate Investors. And they're like, boom, you immediately adopt the reputation of the last real estate investor they spoke to. Oh, he's an investor. I know who this is. This guy's trying to steal the house. Where if I don't put a label to myself, then their mind is, they're coming out of that default mode network of assumptions and shortcuts. Neurologically, they're like, wait, something new. I need to pay attention. What is he talking about? And now they're listening. So I'm going to give them a brief snippet of what I can do, but I have a team of people that I don't pay. Their business doesn't come through my books, but I get the social credit for having this vertically integrated solution. So no matter what could be bothering any family member, whether it's the personal representative or not, another family member, I have a solution for it. And I can, by understanding the probate process and having this team of people, regardless of what I hear, I don't get stumped. They don't get me back on my heels. I don't get marble mouth, because I know they're damn well better off having this conversation with me than not having it with me. I know there's a way I can help every family member. So we'll fast forward and say all that worked. We closed the deal. to the second part of your comment, the average inheritance in the United States is $177,000. So if someone has just gone through this and they've inherited 177,000, how do most Americans live? Hand to mouth. Like, money does not stick. Look at professional athletes, look at lottery winners. If you leave cash sitting in an account, on an American checking account, 95% of people will spend it, not invest it. So what I do is I give every single family I've ever helped, I give an opportunity to sit down for an hour of free time with my registered investment advisor. And I will only work with RIAs. Typically, they're smaller boutique firms that actually have a much higher level of service and a higher standard of professionalism. But also, at the closing table, while I have a real estate attorney present, I introduce them to the concept of private lending and how they can earn an 18% APY by taking the inheritance check that they're just about to receive and either loaning it back to me or loaning it to one of my investors on my buyer's list, or I turn them into an investor themselves and I go find them their own asset. That's the beginning of a relationship, not the end of a relationship.
I was going to ask about that. Was it the end or the beginning? And you answered that right there. It's the beginning of something new with them. And of the transactions that you've done in that probate world, how many would you say have kind of led to that? Now the seller turns investor, or now they do something with that inheritance money and they're scaling their business?
Not very many, but a lot of them send you referrals, because how many people have ever offered them something like that? They know that I'm different. They know that I'm playing in a different league, and they trust me for all of their real estate referrals. So even if it's a neighbor looking to sell their house, they're going to remember that level of service and that level of knowledge that I offered them.
Wow. It's just all good information, because we all want to know what it takes to get that probate lead, but also get it from start to finish. And they got to check out that course, and they got to listen to the show and hear everything that Chad has to say about this. Chad, one of the big questions that comes up, right? You get everybody excited about probate. Like, I'll go to presentations, and at the end, everybody's like, ready to go, ready jumping up to get into this niche. But then the question becomes, well, how do you even get the leads? Right? Like, where do you even get the leads? And you talked about it in the beginning, which was, courthouse stuff. You go to the clerk of the court or stuff, wherever you go, maybe you pull lists and tax delinquents. But ultimately, where do the leads kind of come from in that probate world?
So, they're all coming from the courthouse. It's public data in the vast majority of places. And in maybe 15% of the country now, you can gather that electronically. But it's not likely that you're going to get it with valid phone numbers for the personal representative. So that's what left an opportunity. Big data, for whatever reason, overlooks that data point. They have almost everything else in a records room, but the big guys have stayed away from it. So we found that it was best to actually send a physical a live researcher into the courthouse to pull the data, bring it back. Then we would use our proprietary skip tracing tools and augment that, add phone numbers. You can get it on your own. You can go to the courthouse. And this is something that I end up coaching on a lot. Like, I would imagine the people watching this show either are or want to be at least running a 6-figure business. And you do the math at 40 hours a week. What does it take to hit that number you're trying to achieve? It's probably a lot more than $7 or $8 an hour. And if you're going to the courthouse, spending hours gathering data, it's pen and paper. You leave your cell phone in the truck. So pen and paper in, or paying $1.50 a sheet to get it out. You come back, you put that in a spreadsheet, then you go skip trace it or get it to a VA. Then you have to get it into a database, and then you have to set up your mail merge and send all your letters. And then you have to do it all again in less than 30 days. What I found, and trust me, I did this all manually to begin with. What I found is it compounds very quickly. If you're sending one letter per month to each personal representative in your county, let's just say it's 100 leads. Well, month 1, you have 100 letters. Month 2, you have 200. Month 3 and beyond, you have 300 at critical mass. So you're managing 300 pieces of mail, 300, cells in a spreadsheet. It just becomes counterproductive. if you're a 6-figure earner, really have no business doing that kind of work. If you have a local assistant that can do it for you, or you hire your own researchers, it's great. But it's typically cheaper to find a company that actually does that and does it better than you ever would, because they're doing it at scale and they have systems. So that's what we built at All the Leads. We provided the CRM for free, the training. We do weekly mastermind calls for free. But the biggest part was the mailing automation. So we had and it's still there. All the Leads still has an internal mailing house. So your leads come from the courthouse, go through a proprietary augmentation. They get delivered to you into your CRM already set up. There's no import export. You can actually manage your list as you prospect. You can opt in or opt out from phone calls, emails, and direct mail. So every time somebody says, no, we already sold the house, there are no assets, you just opt them out, and next month they won't get a letter. So it's constantly managing your list, and it's a free prospecting tool. So the cost of a few $100s a month to have the data on hand with accurate phone numbers in a system that automates your marketing, I think it's a small cost to pay. So I still believe, All the Leads, the one check against them, and the only one that I know, is we typically gather data monthly, not daily. And there are companies out there that can provide it at shorter intervals, but they don't provide all the systems and support around it. So as I said, I no longer own my part of that company, but I did build it to kind of work around the model that we've talked about so far. That was really built to automate all of the non-dollar productive parts of what I was doing.
Chad, that's great stuff for people to know. And where you get the leads, and also I thought that was interesting that pulling the data was monthly instead of daily or any other interval in there. Was there like a strategy to that? Was there something about waiting a certain duration on the lead that made it more hot than not?
It's mainly cost. So I always kept track of one of the metrics I kept track of. It's the average family, the median number of days nationwide from the date of death to the date of probate filing was 91 days. Or excuse me, that's not right. 68 days was the median. So the most families will wait a couple of months. They go through the grieving process, then they go visit the courthouse and petition for probate at about the 2-month mark. The reason that all the Leads researchers are only in the courthouse once a month is mainly cost. So you have to pay somebody an hourly rate or a per lead rate, but you're also paying them mileage and, asking them to take a few hours out of their day. So if you send them every day and you're paying mileage and paying kind of an activation fee, I mean, the cost will just climb so high in counties where you can't get it electronically. So we were trying to serve all 3,149 counties. So the model was designed to work as well in a rural market that the person had to drive 2 hours, as well as it was in, the downtown market. So across the board, we chose 30 days. In a lot of markets, they can do bi-weekly. And I think it might be an extra $100 to get it every other week. But a common misconception that I've just noticed from the very beginning is everyone feels the same amount of urgency on a probate list as they do an NOD list or an absentee list or something else. And what I'll tell you is this list is valuable for no less than 24 months. My furthest out closing was 25 months. Well, that's actually not true. The house that I just demoed today sat for 6.5 years, and I bought it for about 8 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
No, I probably got it for like 18 cents on the dollar, and they gave me a hug and were happy to sell it to me for that. So it's a lot of people think that I got to get on this list. All these investors are going to hit it, and there aren't going to be any good deals left. What you'll find is the best deals, the ones that you can buy at the deepest discount, are usually ones that had infighting in the family, or they just stuck their head in the sand, or they were so hurt that they just couldn't deal with it. Those are the ones that come 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years away. And like, I mean, the replacement cost of this asset, not even the ARV, just like as it sits, as is, where is, probably 165, and I got in it for 25. And she hugged me and cried like she was so happy that I was the person buying it. So don't stop marketing to this list until you've spoken to each and every personal representative and you know whether they need your help or not. That's when you quit prospecting the list, is when you've spoken to them. So it's not as urgent as people think. Like, you got to jump on it and start hammering it day one, because that's the mainstream line, train of thought. That's when you have the highest level of competition. In week one, after that probate filing, you're competing with everyone who thinks they can get a deal in town. And that's why what I found, what these differentiating statements and this differentiating model that I've been talking about, that's why it's so effective. Because nobody's ever heard a guy say, my name's Chad, I've got a team of people here in town built specifically to help you, and the probate clerk said I should reach out. What? What do you mean? Like, so boom, and instantly I have engagement. So even if you are prospecting early, even if you are getting the leads on day one, don't sound like everybody else, or you'll get the same damn result. Be unique, stand out, offer value.
All of it, right? Exactly. I've talked about that many times at presentations. Bring value, be authentic, provide them the value, and then show them the money, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a transaction that's a win-win-win. So great tips right there, Chad. And like you said, sometimes the messy deals are the messy and different ones are the ones where there could be more problem solving, but also the best deals, right? Like the ones you're talking about that could take 12 months or 18 months. I've seen things that have sat around for 2 years, but they're complicated, right? I saw one deal that was just a lot of land, and it had been sitting in the family for over 70 years. And I think that the family had gone to different lawyers, different title companies, and nobody could solve that. And then we found a way to solve that. It was like 6 probates in 6 months, but nobody was able to figure out the puzzle. And then we have investors like you and all the amazing investors and realtors that are out there watching the show and that are part of the real estate community that are problem solvers that would try to figure out, how do we get over that hump? How do we solve that problem and help those people that have never had that issue, right? Because if you don't solve it, it's probably going to go to a tax deed or a foreclosure auction, or some kind of thing's going to happen. And who knows if it's going to make money? Is it going to go over the bid, or is it going to go below the bid? Who knows what's going to happen? But then you have the problem solvers that come in. If you all out there, I know you all are watching. I know you all are sitting there. You're in front of the computer. You're in front of the TV. Hopefully you have it on the TV. Maybe you plugged it into the Apple TV. The Al Nicoletti Show is in the family room now. So make sure you just ask all your questions. We got Chad live. I mean, he can go through A through Z. He can talk about marketing, all about the leads and the whole process. So make sure you ask your questions. We're live. I see some questions here. I see Kobe's got a great comment. We'll get to that in a second. Kobe, that may take the whole screen, so we'll read it all. We'll make sure we get to it. But ask your questions here. We're live, and make sure you stay tuned, because I got the special giveaway. Because all of this stuff that Chad's talking about, absorb it. We want to make sure we all stay to the end, because Chad, this is amazing, amazing content. So let me ask you this. We'll get there, Kobe. We're gonna get to your question. Let me ask you this though. What do you do, Chad, when you get that messy deal that takes 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and solving the problem? Who are some of the people that you're working with that can help you get over that hump, whether it's the skip tracers or the private investigators? What things are you doing on your end to help solve that puzzle? Not just yourself, but the people around you.
So I don't find that, like, once you have a deal, I haven't really had much. The worst one I ever had, and this was before, like, this was in that first 6 months. I bought a house for $7,000 with 7 heirs. It was a mess. It was a house that had foundation issues. There were 7 heirs. None of them had spoken to each other in 20 years. Come to find out, 5 of them were dead and 2 of them were still alive but estranged. And I was talking to one of them. And that one I gave to a title company. And the title company, it was the same title company that, like, in my first year in Roanoke, I think I did on license, 52 deals, and probably like 6 wholesales, and I think 5 or 6 lease options. And I put all those through this title company. So I expected them to be loyal and do their job, right? My job is to get them on paper. Your job is to turn paper into closings. With that one, though, they just let off the gas. So they weren't willing to go find the heirs of the 5 deceased heirs and actually get releases or get them to sign. They weren't willing to put that work in. So I learned very quickly to only work with attorneys like you on probate deals. And those attorneys have their own teams that do that work. And that was our agreement. It's like, my job was to get it under contract. Your job is to get it closed. And what I would suggest, if you don't have that person on your team, not speaking to you, Al, but everyone else, like, look for attorneys who already work with investors, who already understand the strategy you're using, who are representing investors that buy at the courthouse steps, that buy short sales, that buy tax liens or tax deeds, that go to absolute auctions, that buy from divorce situations, because that attorney doesn't have a learning curve. He's earned he's earned it. Like, he knows how to blow through title issues, just like you were able to see a creative solution to a title issue that had made it through 2-3 generations of people. No one had figured it out, but you understood it. So I aligned myself mainly with an attorney that has a good team that will actually attack those. Typically, though, I mean, the typical probate deal is all said and done in days. I mean, if I'm a motivated buyer and I have cash that's sitting around, I'll put a 4-day closing on it, and we're going to close. Like, I'll have crews in there this time next week. My record on a probate house is about 1 hour and 45 minutes from phone call to deed in hand. And that one I had to bail a guy out. But I mean, you can do them in as little as a couple hours.
It's crazy that you say that, because I mean, not every probate's the same. Every situation's different, right? With 6 probates, 6 months, it's totally different. But I love how you talked about the hours, because on my fastest probate, getting it from file to court orders was 2 hours. So, it happened during the pandemic. I haven't seen that again with some of the shortages and everything. But that's crazy that you talk about that, because you never know. Stuff like that does happen. And on that deal, you'll never believe it though, Chad. On that deal for 2 hours, some lawyer had the file for 6 months and nothing was going on. And then all of a sudden they called me, the heirs called me, and they were like, we're ready for something. And then getting it done, moving it quickly. It was a smaller county though. So I don't know if there was a whole lot happening. It wasn't like a Miami County where there's like 5,000 probates a year, but
Right.
But you're right. You're right in the fact that probate can actually take a matter of, it could be 2 hours, rare, but it could be days, a week, a month, 2 months. It doesn't have to be this 12 2-year process that a lot of people think about when they get into it, until they meet Al Nicoletti and Chad Corbett. It's like totally different game. But we got to jump to some questions and comments. I mean, I love, can I just tell you, I see you all out there. Okay. You're watching the show. I love that you're watching. I love that you're dropping comments. I love that you're interacting with Chad. That means so much. Chad, I love when the viewers are doing this. It's amazing. But I love when you're talking about all of this stuff. And we got to go back to some things. Guillermo, he dropped the question, but we'll go back to that one. Frank's saying, nice process. Ira said the creativity of what you're bringing is awesome. So that's amazing. We have even people talking in the chat box. Bill Gross is popular, and then Kat said the messy deals can become your best referral sources. That could be huge, right? If you're not if you have a different model, a different system of fast, quick close, and you don't want to get into those, right, Chad? I mean, those could be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody could be referring those out to somebody that wants to solve them. This one, Kobe, he said, I've taught myself to build a list before the courthouse and get away from buying lists, as everyone can get those. I go through a bit and can get way out in front. And also the courthouse are usually already represented by an attorney. This is a slow process, but there is no list at this point. And the only problem I see is people sometimes are deceased a day or 4 ago and not sure how to talk to these people. Any thoughts?
So this is where I might break rapport with Kobe. I don't agree with the way most people approach pre-probate. I don't believe that it should be allowed to be a direct marketing list. And something that we haven't talked about here, but I'll the hell with it. Candor's a virtue, right? Um, I just turned 40. I was able to hit financial independence and kind of semi-retire at 38. And my goal was to move home around 40 and retire with my father when he did. I dug his grave on November 1st. That's why I missed your last show. And as I was digging his grave, I was thinking about this. And I thought, what would happen if someone called me a pre-probate right now? And I'll tell you, just based on my principles and who I am, I would make it my mission to absolutely destroy your professional credibility if you did that to my family. And I know that many, many, many other people have to feel that way. If you're calling a grieving widow, if somebody called my mom, even now, but if somebody called her the day after my father died, your ass would be mine. Like, I wouldn't stop. I would be relentless in pursuing you and just showing the world what, like, I would first make sure, like, I would make sure who you are and what your intent is. But the people I've seen do this and joke about it in Facebook groups, it just doesn't sit right with me. So I believe there is a right way to do it. And I think it's not a direct marketing approach, but it's a value approach. I think if you really want to excel in that space, you set up a community Facebook group. You invite people like Al Nicoletti, like social workers, grief counselors, probate attorneys, people that can really provide value, Medicaid consultants, nursing home employees, anyone who can help, the housing authority, anyone that might be able to help, better the living situation for a surviving spouse, help them understand what it means to lose half of your fixed income when only one Social Security check shows up and you didn't plan for the future, like those things. So provide an environment for the community where people can come and actually it'll actually help with their grieving, help them through the process, build trust with you and the team that you've built around you, and do something like this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Highlight somebody you're proud to highlight that can bring value to those people and attract the business to you. So I'm not going to say much about direct marketing to the list because I believe there's probably there's a small, and maybe you're that person. I'm not saying you're not, but there's a small handful of people that could actually approach that with tact where they wouldn't screw up their reputation. So it's not a list that I've so far been associated with, but it is one I wouldn't mind being associated with in teaching that inbound strategy, how you build a value-based approach to bring the business to you, not rushing out there hammering the phones, dealing with mothers who have lost children or, their husbands, or, it's such a sensitive time and you don't even know who the decision maker is. At best, you're guessing, you're skip tracing random people who are named in an obituary. So that's hopefully that doesn't break rapport with the whole group, but it's one of those areas where I think most people approach it very selfishly. And it's still a relatively new thing. Like, a few companies got a hold of the Social Security death file and started pushing it out there. And it's just, there's a right way to handle it. And I haven't seen anybody doing that yet, in my opinion. I wouldn't put my reputation on the line with that list for a direct marketing campaign. As far as how to get the list, there's obviously lots of companies out there. I actually spoke with Tim Yandel, my previous partner in all the leads, and ironically enough, they said tomorrow they're actually launching their obituary product. That's something that, because of the soapbox rant that I just finished, we never did launch when I was there, just because we didn't have proof of the proper way to prospect it. What we had was a few people who tested the list and got their asses handed to them on the phones immediately and then quit. And I think that's what most people do with that pre-probate list. But anyways, to close that loop, I would recommend develop a value first inbound strategy and earn that business over time. Don't try to go, harass family members who aren't ready to have the conversation.
Well, what you talked about though, Chad, I mean, that's a good perspective to see it from the other side, right? Because of those different lead lists that are out there. You never know how somebody's going to feel on that pre-probate side. But what you're focusing on, and a lot of people, investors also do is, it may be years since date of death, or they're already in probate going through that process. So, but I mean, those perspectives are good. We encourage that. That's the kind of stuff that the professionals in the real estate world want to hear about. What does one person think about this versus another? So we got the Chad Corbett perspective on that, which is really good. Great content out there. Frank says great content. Michael Robertson, he says spectacular show and guest. Thank you. He is a great guest. Chad Corbett's a great guest to have on the show because he's talking all about the real estate probate world. And Lehman Taylor, she said, we closed on a probate deal today. Thanks, Al Nicoletti. I don't know which one did we do one? I don't remember which one it was. There's a lot of them going on, Lehman. So let me know which one this was. But you're welcome. Thank you for watching. Ira, thank you so much for watching. He says, yeep. So Guillermo has a great question. So how do you deal with pre-foreclosure when bank has filed the lis pendens and property needs probate, but potential would be heirs don't realize they can benefit? The estate individuals are being summoned in the foreclosure. I know they can stop the foreclosure and they can get a payout.
So this is the most common pre-foreclosure scenario. So 77% of homes that go through probate are held free and clear. And of the ones that are encumbered that do have some type of lien against them or a mortgage, it's typically a reverse mortgage or a HELOC. And as much as I mean, with HELOCs, I don't really see much need for a reverse mortgage, but I guess it's for people with subpar credit. But most commonly when I see this, it's because it's a HECM lender foreclosing on a reverse mortgage note. Oftentimes there's not much you can do because it's clear, it said within 6 months in the fine print, within 6 months of the dwelling being vacated, it shall be on the market or sold. Otherwise they can accelerate and recover the asset. And for the more fly-by-night HECM lenders, that's actually their ideal outcome. Like, they're doing this to recover assets because they make a lot more money. So one thing you can do is, I guess I'm trying to think of what order to go through this. The least likely one, but the one that will protect the family the most, is you get a real estate attorney involved as soon as possible, file for an injunction, and try to stop the foreclosure process with the assistance of the court and the judge. A lot of times you're not going to get that if it's a reverse mortgage situation. If everyone's different and the judge will make the decision, but option one is you can get an injunction. I wouldn't count on that. Option two is you can get an authorization to release, make contact with the lender, and engage in a short sale by presenting an offer and a short sale package. And that one, it usually works. Option three, if they're not willing to play ball, you can't get an injunction and you don't have an offer, or they aren't willing to stop for a short sale. Actually, that one doesn't work in this scenario. One of my tricks for that is to file bankruptcy and then discharge it later, but you can throw the brakes. You can throw the brakes on that proceeding. Or the other option is to bring the note current. So depending on how much, if there's equity in the home, you can approach the lender and just offer them payoff, hopefully before it gets to the steps. And then your last option is go to the steps and bid like hell.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But, Chad, it's really interesting. You brought up 2 points. The reverse mortgages, I'll ask that second, but being able to stop the foreclosure or reschedule the sale, where I've seen it is it could be possible where the contract, they call it being legitimate. It goes over the amount of the payoff. So if the contract goes over the amount, the lender knows they're going to get paid. There's sometimes it does work. And I guess you've seen it also where it doesn't. So you got to move quickly in those deals is what you're basically saying. You got to get creative with the note, or maybe reinstate the loan or do something with that process that gets it to that point. So that's a great tip. Also, we didn't even cover this. Yeah, you were going to say something.
So the other thing is, and this is, I'll preface this by saying you better understand the probate process and you better have a clear understanding and multiple real estate finance strategies if you're going to play this game. Most families in probate that have a reverse mortgage or a HECM loan on the property, most of them will put their head in the sand and let it go. And in my experience, 90% of them, even if there's equity, they just let it go. They were usually, that means they were disgusted. They advised their parents not to take that, to do that sort of mortgage. They did anyways. And their ego is like, I told dad not to do that. Now watch me be right. And they'll actually give up equity to be right because they've got a low EQ. But in that scenario, you can actually take those subject to the existing note staying in place. If you can get it done in the time frame, if you're in a state where you can actually transfer title, you can buy it, for $1 with the existing note in place and then work it out under your own name. Depending on where you are in the foreclosure timeline, like for example, in Virginia, you have a 90-day, like they have to put notice in the paper for 21 days. Then they notice the 90 days after the default, they publish, and then you have 21 days, then it can go to sale. So I know I've got about 110-day, time clock. If I talk to them on day 30, I'm confident that I can go in, buy the house subject to, take possession, and then go to my community bank, even put a tenant in it, and then go to the community bank and like, look, I got a 1.4 debt coverage ratio. Write me a note from your commercial side, asset based, and I take them out and clear the lien off the property that I already hold title to. So there's advanced strategies like that. If you understand the probate process, you understand the foreclosure process, and you understand the fine print on the note that you're acquiring, that's one of the best ways to take those. Everyone else is either checked out or afraid of them, and you can pull them right off the, if it goes to the courthouse steps, it's your asset, not your credit. So there's not a lot of risk there. But there's a hell of a lot of reward if you really educate yourself on these processes, these legal processes. You can step in and build a free portfolio doing just what I just said.
Yeah. And many times I've even said there's a lot of things you don't have to know all in that probate real estate. It's just another transaction with a puzzle that everybody's got to figure out to get to that end. And then you got the real estate side with everybody with inspections and qualifying, or if you're a cash buyer, you don't even have to do any of that. You just got to get to closing. So, knowing those processes actually can really help too. Knowing where things are at, what the stages are. Is it going to be a summary? Is it going to be a formal? You don't have to know every word and term, right? You don't have to know all those little things, but you just got to know just enough to get to that finish line, which is great stuff that you said. And Satarina, she said, wow, such interesting information. It really is. I mean, having this perspective of not the attorney, but the probate investor, and having seen it on a different level is invaluable. So that's amazing. Chad, I actually thought of one that just really hit me when you said reverse mortgages. So Guillermo, I think this is something that happened in the probate deal. How do you solve getting a payoff when the property hasn't hit the foreclosure process yet and the bank is reluctant to give you that payoff? What are some tips and tricks on how you're able to find out what that payoff is without a court file?
Well, if the decedent, if the note was only in the name of the decedent, you can't really get an authorization to release, and it's sometimes difficult. If a surviving spouse was also on the note, then you can get an authorization to release, and you can actually fax that to them. Yes, they still use fax machines, and you can have that conversation. Other times, I'll take whomever the decision maker is, whether it's the petitioner or the personal representative, depending on the timeline. Get them on the phone with you. Do your best to charm the representative on the other end of the line and have a conversation. It doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does.
Yeah, I've just noticed that's been a problem on some things I've seen lately where it's a reverse mortgage, right? Seems to be that on the reverse mortgages, it's really, really hard to get a payoff in that time frame, that 30-day, that 6-month, that 1 year, that grace period they give you to pay off the loan. It seems to be really hard to get that payoff. And I think there was another deal we had seen where probate hadn't even started yet, foreclosure hadn't even started yet, but the bank or the lender, I don't even know if it was the servicer or it had been passed down to a new person that took over that loan, but they were just not giving that payoff. And we've seen that sometimes we have to get the probate done first to even get that payoff, which is, it's just crazy because you don't
Yeah.
even know what it is after, right? You don't know if there's you're gonna be underwater or it's gonna be a deficiency after that. But it's really interesting when you brought up reverse mortgages. When you see those leads of reverse mortgages, those are usually probate situations because they're not going to foreclose unless the person that owned it had that loan is deceased now.
Yep.
Yeah. So great, interesting stuff. Yeah. So we also had Guillermo said we stopped the sale with the Keeling home because we got an order with real property, closed the deal. Thanks out, Guillermo. You're the man. Thanks for always watching. And it's just great information on everything, Chad. I mean, from skip tracing to the reverse mortgages to the Just Be Chad, all the personal interactions. I'm sure we could talk for another hour on all the on probate marketing. One more thing before we have a total conclusion to this probate mastery that you're putting on, Chad, which is the letter in a direct mail. Do you have any that silver tongue, that gold information on what you can put on a letter that would really stand out different from the pack on a direct mail marketing piece?
Absolutely. So the letters that I include with the course, I think I have 12 in there, like in a letter template library. Those are all, and those are the letters that are going through, all the leads mail system, and they may have more since I left. But when I turned those over, I had spent about $50,000 of my own personal money figuring out which letters worked and didn't in the probate space, which envelope worked and didn't, which handwritten font worked and didn't. So for me, I always send a greeting card envelope, usually a pastel with a live, a hand address and a live stamp. Inside, I try to keep it to one page. You have a differentiating opening line. Again, everything that I've talked about so far in this episode pretty much comes through in my letters. I don't take a title. I'm not sending it as a company. I do have minimum brokerage compliance information in a light gray number 8 font in the footer, just so if the state ever says you didn't disclose your license, I could say, yeah, I could. And you can see it in the footer, but it's discreet. The most important part of it is help them understand those things that we did. You heard me do the probate USP as I would on the phone. Who are you? How did you get their information? What can you do for them? And then asking them a question or leading their thoughts into the next paragraph. The most important part of any probate letter is the PS paragraph. And I say paragraph because usually it's, mine was PS. If you're not ready to speak to anyone just yet, please go to, probatewebsite.com to learn more about what we do. And that was a sentence, but there you can go longer. Like, honestly, the PS line gets all eyes go to the PS line. I've tested this using Google Analytics and WordPress Jetpack by putting different domains in the PS line and then immediately going and looking at your web analytics. I can tell you what time the mailman walks down the street because about 60% of people will open the letter immediately and go to your website. If I send 100 letters, I can measure 60 web hits in about a 3-hour window. So that tells me that that validated that the PS line is as important as I thought it was. The nature of those letters, because they are so different, because they're in a greeting card envelope, because they're hand signed and they have that information, just like the story I opened with, that letter was hanging around on a fridge for 2 months. A lady who told me, don't you ever call me again. And, she gave me some choice words, but her ego was showing me that based on whatever fear that was, fear of moving out of the home she was comfortable with or whatever. But her behavior was inconsistent. Her behavior put it in a place of safekeeping. And that's how her daughter found it and why I got that phone call. So that letter was good enough that she actually trusted me to some extent, even though she called me and told me that I was an asshole and to take her off the list. The letter was still important to her. And it's ultimately what led to her getting the solution that saved her from that situation. So the letters we include with the course, they're all a little bit different. They're all significantly different. There's one, for example, the toughest market I know of in the country to be a probate specialist is in the Denver metro area, like basically Colorado in general, because they have 2 sets of records for probate. One set is recorded upon petition. The other is recorded upon closing. And if you want access to the petition files, you have to pay, I think it's $5 per record. And then you also pay the printing fees to take those out. So it doesn't paper for most people. It's just too expensive. But in that market, I wrote a letter called the Probate Social Enterprise Letter. And the entire front page doesn't even mention real estate. It talks about the company as a social enterprise, like almost like it's a nonprofit set up to help these families going through probate. And when you flip it over, it has 10, like all the options for real estate, starting with option 1, do nothing. Option 2, become a landlord. Option 3, sell it for cash. And I'll walk them through those progressively, more complicated solutions that they can do. So that's a 2-page letter. I have others that are half a page, but none of the letters that I have, they've all been proofed out, and they've all been proofed out in every state, and they work. And the other important part is to get you into it. I'll never give you a letter and say it's ready to mail. Like, I don't know what your business culture is. I don't know, what your story is. So every letter you should introduce yourself personally, and say why you're doing this. Like, get your why into that first paragraph, and you'll have a much higher response rate. All the letters that I've been referencing, I average a 2% close rate on probate lists. So if I get 100, I'll close 2 in the first, or excuse me, it's 2% per month, and I would mark it for 3 months. So over about a 7-year period, I maintained a 6% close ratio on a cold list, and I didn't do outbound. I was just using direct mail for inbound. So for every 100 cold leads, I could count on 6 closings over the next quarter. And a lot of those were come buy me surprises from previous quarters that I didn't even know which list they were from because I'd forgotten about them. It compounds over time. It's like a snowball. Your momentum will just keep building. So that's what I would say is hit those main points: who you are, how you got their information, what you can do for them, end with a strong but not threatening PS with a call to action.
Amazing. Those are great tips, Chad. Those are great. And I even saw a comment from Kat, and she was replying back to Kobe, but she said, one tip Chad always emphasizes is to include a PS line mentioning, if you're not ready to talk yet, visit website for more information. So big fans out there that see what you're doing and pay attention, right? Those little things can make a difference. And Florida Flash says, can you discuss finding a Florida Trust qualified and non-qualified funds? Do you get into any of that?
I'm not sure of the qualified and non-qualified. The trust, meaning the family trust.
They may be talking about that. I didn't know if you got into all of that stuff too.
Okay, so one of the things we haven't talked about, and one of the main tenets that we teach in Probate Mastery, you should have we've been on the marketing track. There's a whole other side of this, which is building a referral network, and this is your B2B network. So people like Al Nicoletti, a probate attorney you can trust, to when you get stuck, to say, Al, I just talked to a family in X, Y, and Z. What do I do? So probate attorneys, I teach you to build a referral network the same way I do to prosper, by providing value first. So, Al, I don't know how many realtors or investors come into your office asking for business, but I'm betting happens, doesn't it?
Not as often as you think.
Yeah. A lot of folks don't have the courage to even try, but most of the ones that do get the courage to try, they go in asking for something. So what I teach you how to generate an A+ ready to roll trust referral. So take the high net worth individuals in your life on your client list, people that, sellers that you've represented, buyers you've represented, other investors that you network with, your dentist, whoever it might be. Only 5% of Americans currently have a living trust, and a vast majority of those are aggregated in the wealthier zip codes in the Western U.S. and on the West Coast. So there's a better chance than not that anyone in your life that's making at least 6 figures should have a living trust, but they don't have. So you can do something like a sphere of influence campaign where you say, hey guys, early in 2022, I'm holding myself to a higher standard this year. And I realized it's time for me to get in a proper estate plan in place, because how many young people have we seen die in the last 24 months? So I actually have used an estate planning attorney to set up a proper living trust for my family. And I'd like to extend an offer for you to sit down with my attorney for an hour to do the same. So I get 10 people to raise their hands. I can either bring 10 referrals to Al Nicoletti and be his, like, he'll never forget me, or I can bring him 2 and 4 other guys too. But either way, when I walk into a probate attorney or an estate planning attorney's office, I'm coming in with something to offer first. So what we teach is build a referral network of registered investment advisors, CPA, probate attorneys, title companies, senior moving companies, estate sale companies, and you get just as many, if not more, inbound leads from your referral network. And I see a follow-up question to that. So she said funding, or they said funding trusts.
Yeah. I didn't know if you got into, I don't know where it was going, but you really answered a big question about, there's 2 big components to the probate mastery, which is one is marketing. And then the other is that network building and networking with, whether it's the attorneys, the title companies, right? Finding the right title companies is big to close the transaction, or maybe there's personal property in that house that they have to move out, people that they can work with to move out, move stuff out. So, there's tons of things that we could probably get into. You got to check out Chad's course, his program, Probate Mastery. We'll put it on the screen again. And anybody else that has questions before we close out, drop it real quick before we close out the whole show. And then I'll do my exit part with the whole special giveaway at the end. But Chad, for everybody out there watching, final words, final thoughts on everything in that probate real estate world.
So I'll just say that I've done a lot of things in my life. I've been a cowboy, a lumberjack, law enforcement, you name it, resort real estate. This is probably, and especially within the real estate niche, the reason I've dedicated a good chunk of my career to this. It's the most rewarding, lucrative, easiest real estate business I've ever done. I've never closed deals so quickly, gotten paid so quickly, but also had such grateful customers and clients. So it's something that I think it's easy for a lot of folks. If you're not in this space, maybe you're here because you're already in the space, but if you're not, it's easy for some people to turn their nose up to and take that easy route out of, oh, I don't want to be called an ambulance chaser. What you find, and I won't lie, I've had that apprehension too, but it's just not true. When you connect with these families, the ones that actually need your help and want your help, and Bill Gross is on here. He's been part of my community for 3 years. He's a great example of it. It's such rewarding business. Like it's if you've ever thought about it, if you're ever frustrated, and if you failed at probate, like the approach that I'm proposing, what we teach and what our community is built around, it gets a different result. But I would say don't hesitate to try it, or don't hesitate to try it this way, because it can be basically a business on autopilot at a certain point.
Yeah, you got to learn. You don't have to learn everything with it, but you got to learn just enough to figure out what's going on and learn from people like you, learn from people that have been in the game a while, and understand that it's important to build a network and surround yourself with the right people, and good things will happen. It may take time, but it will get there. So, Chad, it's been a pleasure hearing everything you have to say on probate real estate. I think it's a fascinating niche, to tell you the truth. I think it's fascinating with the trees and the lineage and who are heirs and who inherits and what happens when there's no kids, no will. I think the whole thing is fascinating about inheritance. When I first started it, I just saw that it was like one kid, 3 kids, but then you see sometimes there's like 6 probates, a big tree, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews. I have a whole thing that I do at presentations called the Probate Macarena, which breaks down like the whole tree. Like if you can't find these people, then you go up. You can't find these people, you go out. So, I think the whole probate thing is really, really interesting. And, you're in a niche. You got the course, you got the program. So I can't wait for everybody to check that out, because that is big, big, big. So thank you so much again. And everybody's loving it. Everybody's loving it, from Guillermo to Robert Rodriguez, and even Donna. She said probate's not easy in Maine. I don't know if you've had any experience there.
I've coached in all 50 states. Colorado is the toughest I've seen. I'll say this, Donna, you can you PM me like that. They've showed my socials and stuff here. PM me. We'll have a call and see if we can change your opinion on that. I've never been skunked anywhere in the country. Colorado takes 4 to 6 months to get up to actual momentum where you're actually consistently closing deals. But I'll point to Dave Gwynn as an investor. The reason I point to him, he's an investor. He does investor and brokerage strategies, but his core strategy is virtual wholesaling, and he does it in the Denver metro area and on the Space Coast. So he doesn't even come to Florida. He lives in the Denver metro. So those people who say it's too competitive, too hard, it doesn't work here, he didn't believe that. He took Probate Mastery, and he's been with me for, I think, for at least 4 years, maybe 5. 5 years ago, he was a student. So it may not work. It may not be easy, but I've found in every market that I just put my mind to it. If you're willing to raise your hand and say, here's what I'm finding, here's where I'm getting shut down. Usually in 2 or 3 coaching calls, we can break through whatever the obstacle is and make it work. So,
Yeah.
and I think I see it's MA, not ME. So Massachusetts, yes, I have been successful in Boston. I can't remember that county. And then out on the Cape, like Sandwich County, like Sandwich, and out on Cape Cod. So yes, I have coached people out there, and I have had success in Massachusetts.
Cool. So yeah, reach out to Chad. I mean, develop that relationship. Talk to Chad about all these other places. He's got experience in all these other states like Colorado, Massachusetts. I mean, tons of stuff out there, tons of different states with different rules. And the land mogul, John Alexander, he's watching. John, I mean, this is great, right? I mean, we get to learn a lot about the probate side of things, whatever state you're in. And Chad, you have brought so much value. And I mean, when you have people like John Alexander, the land mogul that's watching, it's amazing. I love it. So, to close out, thank you so much again for being here. I'm glad we got to connect, have that really deep conversation on a lot of probate marketing. I mean, we could probably stay another hour or two on the whole networking side of things, but that alone is a masterclass on probate marketing. So, Chad, it was a pleasure. I really appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And I mean, man, these Wi-Fi is free for the most part, so we can do more of these. If you want to pick a certain snippet of that and go deeper, I'm happy to. Just let me know.
Oh, we'll have season 4. We'll have to have season 4, the networking side of it, to break down the mastery, because I'm sure there's going to be probate mastery 2.0. You're going to find something in the next year that like you're going to break down even more, and that's going to provide that value in the industry, because I'm sure you see the stats are only going up, the baby boomer period's only going up, so more of this is going to happen. So that big submersion into this niche is going to be huge, huge, huge to know.
Yep. Between now and 2040, we're going to lose an estimated 80 to 90% of the baby boomer generation will be gone by 2040. So we're going to see huge, like continuous growth in this space. You're going to see more and more of those scenarios. And I think we're currently seeing around 900,000 properties per year coming off of 1.3 million deaths. That's stacking up. So there's a lot of runway in front of us. And if you put your flag in the sand and you do this right, it's nearly impossible for anyone to unseat you in your market. Like if you become the expert, the trusted expert, and attorneys, CPAs, court employees, nursing home employees, senior moving companies, if everyone has the same referral, if you've built that network and they all point back to you, no one else is taking that business from you. You've got a sellable asset when you're ready to retire.
Huge, huge. John says, I'm a baby boomer. John's out there. I mean, yeah, this is the big peak right now, right at the beginning. 2020 going to 2030. I've even seen stats. I mean, see, this is where Chad and I can keep going. Chad, I've seen stats where pre-pandemic, it's 2037, a third of the inventory in like the Florida market alone is going to involve some kind of baby boomer the probate side of things. The one thing that we haven't seen yet, which is going to be really interesting, if you ever see it, shoot me an email or message me because I want to see it, which is the post-pandemic stats from people moving from California to Florida, New York to Florida, where that that level has now gone up. And I don't know what those stats are going to be with all the development going on in the Jacksonville area, in Central Florida, and in South Florida. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm sure it's going to only go up more. And that's where Chad's saying, if you get in the game now and you learn it now, it'll take off, because it's really pretty much just starting, really just getting out.
It is, and we have to stop at some point, but I'm sure you've dealt a lot with ancillary probate where they've changed residency to Florida for favorable taxation, but they left assets back in New Jersey, New York, New Hampshire, and there's a lot of opportunity there we can talk about. You can monetize this on a national level by networking with other probate professionals.
Interesting. What are some of those other probate professionals?
Attorneys, certified probate experts, people in my community that know how to handle these and provide a high level of service that's consistent, that we all kind of follow the same methodology. So, we have a network of several thousand CPEs that, kind of like a franchise prototype. If you would send a referral to me, then you can send a referral to Bill Gross in California. Mm-hmm. I can't be everywhere, but I can influence everywhere. So I'm very proud to say we've got a huge network of certified probate experts that would all agree with and, with most of the things I've said tonight. Everybody has their own, unique way of doing it, but things like that. So it's not uncommon in Florida to find assets out of state where you have an ancillary probate. The primary probate would be in their county of residence, but there's an ancillary probate happening in Boston.
Right.
And knowing how to connect with the right professionals, you can earn both of those deals.
Yeah. And there's times, and I could probably blow your mind with this, Chad. There's times where there's property in Florida, but they lived and resided out of state. And actually you don't even have to open that probate out of state to get the Florida probate done. And it's pretty wild. I mean, how you don't even have to get that involved, and you could just get it done here. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think, oh, you got to do it there and here. But that's where working with people that have that experience excels all. So love it, Chad. We are, you're going to be on part 2 of Al and Chad on season 4 on the Al Nicoletti Show, because there's tons of tons of content that are out there. So, I mean, this is amazing stuff. I love it. So Chad, I will see you soon. We will connect soon. I know we'll be doing another podcast on your show. So that'll be a blast. And thank you so much for being on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great night.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Chad. So everybody that's out there, that was a huge episode. I mean, Chad and I could have kept going for like 2-3 hours on a whole different angle. I think that whole angle on the probate marketing was huge. If you thought it was really big, drop a comment in there. I'd love to hear all the feedback. I love the viewers that are out there. And of course, you all stay tuned for the best part also of the show, which is the special giveaway. And you all are probably thinking, what's the special giveaway with the land mogul? So let me tell you the story, because this is really interesting. So about the time that John sent me his book at my place, he sent me his book. He also eventually sent me a pack of something in a package. And I opened the package and I saw it was from John. And I'm thinking, I wonder what this is. And John sent me a whole bunch of his title books, the DIY real estate title search. And I was so excited because he sent me the books to give away on the Al Nicoletti Show. But it was in December and we hadn't even gotten back into the season 3 yet. So now that we were kicking off in season 3, he sent all these 10 books. I have 10 of them. So we'll make sure we get the special question. So see if you actually win one. But there's more. Wait, there's more. It's not just a John Alexander Land Mogul DIY real estate title search book. It's a signed copy right there. Look at that camera. That focus is right there on it. Signed copy of the Land Mogul signing his book right here. This is special stuff right here. This is real estate memorabilia. Forget sports memorabilia. This is real estate memorabilia. I don't know when we'll ever see this right here. So you all are paying attention. This is a special giveaway. We're going to do it live on the show. And of course, I thought of some great questions, 2 questions that you got to answer in order to get the possibility of getting this book. It's the first 10 that do it, the first 10 that drop the comment in. I'm sure everybody's going to be scrambling on this one. So first question is, what is the name of Chad Corbett's course, his whole program? What is the name of that program? Make sure you drop that in. And then part 2 is, what is the average inheritance of what somebody has upon passing? Like, what is that average? He listed a number. So if you got to go back and see what it is, you got to go listen deep into the show to find out what that number is. I thought that was a great number Chad put out there. So you all got to drop it in, drop your comments in. But this is valuable right here. I mean, look how many books he gave me. This is amazing. All signed copies. John, you are the man. You are the land mogul, the land master on this stuff. So I was so happy to be able to do this giveaway on here on the show. So great show with Chad. I'm so happy. I see him backstage hanging around. Make sure, Chad, stick around before we all hop off when we get off live. But I love everybody that's watching. I can't stress it enough. And also, I don't know, all the fans out there, I know you're seeing the shelves. If you go back to season 2, when we first had the studio built, the show shelf, well, I think it was empty. I think my violin was up there. I think I had the Carnegie rail up there. Mike and I were putting all this stuff up here. And yeah, I mean, it just, and the dead plant was still up there. But then we fixed it. We put something up there. But now we have the books. The geeks are up there. Profit First. All the amazing guests on the show are up there. And now, because the show shelf is getting so big, we got a whole second shelf that we got to fill over here. So we'll make sure, Chad, if you got the book, we'll have to put the book over here or something that says Probate Mastery. We got to get it on the shelf. So again, thank you all so much for watching. A jam-packed episode, huge episode on probate marketing. I got a dose of what was going on in the world of probate real estate. And I'm on the attorney side, but I got to see the investor side. So thank you all so much for watching. And I will see you next week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Good night, everybody. Have a good one. I'll see you then.